Welcome into the show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show, presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Hope you guys had a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Doc Rivers got fired. As I told you yesterday, I was inching closer and closer to this. I mean, now it seems like it was inevitable. When you hear a player say, it's okay. How's your relationship? It's okay. Oh, okay. So he's fired. Hey, you know what? At least he listened to the gospel song, the 8-minute gospel song that Doc Rivers sent him before he absolutely went off in game 4. So that's good. Find himself. You know my name. I hope that he listened to that a couple more times. Didn't look like he did in a bunch of those games, but whatever. So Doc Rivers gets fired and officially gets dropped by none other than Adrian Wojnarowski yesterday. Comes across the crawl. On ESPN, Doc Rivers gets fired. There's a lot of reaction. We'll get to it. Austin Krell will be joining us from thepaintedlines.com, as well as USA Today. Doc Rivers also released a statement of his own. And here's the thing. You know what I don't like about doing this, like, just sports talk in general? I don't like saying mean things about people. Sometimes you got to be brutally honest, and sometimes you got to say it about people that you actually like and actually respect, but you got to be a professional, and you got to, to keep it real. And I don't feel like Doc Rivers was the guy to lead this team any further past the point that he already had done. And it's not all his fault. It never is all the coach's fault, but it was the decision the Sixers had to make. And Doc, and I like the guy, I respect the hell out of the guy. I thought this was a very classy statement by Doc Rivers saying, I really enjoyed my time in Philadelphia. Doc putting this out on his own social media. What a great city. I want to start by thanking the staff, the players, the ownership group for their support. We got a lot done in a short amount of time. I'd also like to thank the 76ers fans. Woo! That's literally what he wrote. For the people on the podcast, he actually wrote, woo! W-H-E-W. You guys are tough. And I think you've learned I'm tough, too. I absolutely love your commitment to the city and its teams. Never lose that. I wanted just as badly as you to bring another championship to Philadelphia. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead, to learn, and to love this great city. Thank you, Doc Rivers, for your time here in Philadelphia. Looking back over Doc Rivers' time in Philadelphia, we went to the same brick wall every single time. Second round exit. 3 straight years. Brett Brown, we had a second round exit. A couple of times there. It's not fun. I admire the hell out of Doc Rivers. I wanted Doc Rivers here in Philadelphia because I thought he was going to be the guy that could actually reach Ben Simmons. Oh, what a time that was. I thought with that experience and with that kind of cachet and the guy that I thought did a phenomenal job through pandemic of being a face of the league when the league needed a face. I thought he did a wonderful job, and I thought he would have a lot of respect from these players. And he would be a guy that could really lead this charge and take the Sixers to the next level. This is what you could do with Brett Brown. What could you do with Doc Rivers? And unfortunately, the end result was the same. It was 50-win seasons. It was a second-round playoff exit. 3 straight years. Joel Embiid played himself into an MVP player, an MVP caliber player for 2 of those years, and then finally an MVP in the final year of Doc Rivers here in Philadelphia. James Harden being here really changed the dynamic of this team, and it also changed the expectations. But yet again, 2 consecutive second-round exits. What I don't like about this move, although I think it's the right move, what I don't like about this move is the idea that this could be the only move of significance. As you always say, it's not always the coach's fault. And in this case, that's certainly true. Your 2 best players came up very small in the final 2 games you played this year. Game 6 and Game 7. James Harden, Joel Embiid came up incredibly small. And I don't care how great a coach you are, it's a really, really tough thing to try to get players going that just can't get themselves going. Like, outside of sending them another gospel song, I don't know what it would have been. But I'm disappointed in Joel Embiid. I'm disappointed in James Harden for their performance. And I'm disappointed in Doc Rivers that throughout the course of the last year and a half with both of these guys on the roster, he was unable to find a way to have more success with both of those guys on the roster. All three of them take blame for this. But in the sport of basketball, a lot of people feel like you can change the coach and all of a sudden the style is going to change. Players are going to be more comfortable. They're going to try to get their own guy in there. And for me, I just didn't think this was ever going to work out to the way I wanted it to the way we all wanted it to. And after the Ben Simmons debacle, I was at my highest when it came to optimism for the James Harden, Joel Embiid version of the Sixers, and this version of Tyrese Maxey that looked like he was improving, and this guy like Tobias Harris that was looking like he was going to find a role with those three other guys being the dominant ball, the dominant ball guards and centers, and it just didn't come to fruition. I just hope that this isn't the only big move that the Sixers make. When I saw the news yesterday, my first reaction to it was, all right, step one. Now step two, which is don't bring James Harden back, but now that's inevitable. And I just think we're headed for a really... I don't see this as being the turning point in the 76ers post-process. I don't see this as, after Brett Brown was gone, they brought in Doc, and that didn't work. And then they brought in Mike D'Antoni, and Mike D'Antoni changed it all. And, man, then they traded Tobias Harris, and they got in whoever, and then this team was all different. And, now they're going to make it to an NBA Finals, and they have a chance to win a championship. I wish I could look back. I wish I could look at this moment and go, this is the moment that it all changed. But I don't have any confidence. With James Harden still being here, Joel Embiid coming up small again in the playoffs, I don't look at this as, this is all they needed to do was just fire Doc Rivers. There's a lot of work to be done. And I don't think this seems good enough. I don't know who they're going to get. I don't know who they're going to acquire. I don't know who they're going to get rid of. But the bottom line is I don't think the duo of James Harden and Joel Embiid, regardless of the coach, is going to win a championship. And that's a cold, hard fact. I don't feel, I'm straight shooting you here. I don't have confidence in this duo winning a championship. So as of right now, all right, good. You fired the head coach. I think it needed to happen. Fresh voice, whatever. But now what are you going to do to upgrade the roster? Because no matter who you have, if these guys can't step up in the postseason and they can't be healthy, they can't be ready to go, I have no hope for this franchise. And it sucks to admit that. And I have said to you many times before, everything's on the table. Harden not coming back, taking phone calls on Joel Embiid. Like, I'm looking at this situation and I'm thinking, like, there is no easy way out of this. I see the 3-4 years that we spent watching god-awful basketball through the process as, like, almost worthless. And it's not because Sam Hinkie was some idiot or anything like that. I actually think he had a good plan. It's just that we weren't able to see it through, nor can we actually predict what the plan was going to be. I wasn't joking when I said 2 weeks ago, like, we don't know if Joel Embiid, when he actually played and Sam Hinkie's still here, we don't know if he go, okay, well, he's great. Let me see what I can trade and get for him because, you can't win with a center as your best player. Like, we don't know. He could have thought that. I know everyone's thinking it was going to be Hinkie and Embiid holding hands with, walking puppies and eating ice cream together, but that's not necessarily the case. So now it's like, is the only way to save the process? Is the only way to trade the process? Because that's the only way you're going to get back a haul of picks in return to try to do the right thing and try to actually build a team and maybe have another shot at getting a superstar that can lead your team. Maybe that guy's a guard. Maybe that guy's way in the future to help you win. It's on the table. Here's the best way I can describe it. The point I'm at right now with this team is if they blew it up, I'd totally get it. I would totally get it. If they just decided to blow it up, and they're not doing this. Firing Doc Rivers means they're not doing this. And you'll hear from Kendrick Perkins. You'll hear from Stephen A. Smith about this decision. I wanted to get the national perspective as well, so I'll let you guys hear what they had to say. But I'm at a point right now of frustration with the 76ers team. And also, logically speaking, if they decided to blow it up, I'd get it. Because are James Harden and Joel Embiid going to win a championship? Like, ask yourself that question right now, honestly. With what we have seen in the past, Second round exits galore, 50-win seasons, great regular seasons, fizzling out in the playoffs. Are those two going to win a championship together? Are we going to see that? Are we going to see somebody like Mike Budenholzer come over here, Nick Nurse come over here? Are we going to see those guys come in here and all of a sudden save this franchise and be, let's see, if they came here and won, Budenholzer and Nick Nurse, if they came here to Philadelphia and won, that means they become the third coach in NBA history to win a championship in two different cities. Phil Jackson, Pat Riley. That's it. It's not an easy thing to do. Oh, get this guy who won a championship over here. He'll win a championship here. No, that's difficult. It's really difficult. There's been two guys that have done that. For all the rehires and retreads and all the guys that have had a second chance to try to win a championship somewhere else, it's only worked twice. And you know what it took? It took Dwayne Wade, Hall of Famer, Shaquille O'Neal, Hall of Famer. It took that. Pat Riley doing it in Miami. Obviously, we know what happened with Phil Jackson in Chicago and Los Angeles. Some pretty good teams right there. But you actually look at this tandem and go, oh, yeah, they got this. And this isn't to say I hate Joel Embiid or anything like that. I love Joel Embiid. But I love the Sixers more. And no one player is above my desire to see my team win a championship. I know some people might sound crazy to even answer a phone call. And granted, I'm not saying push him out. He's done. Get Joel Embiid out of here. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I understand why people would want to blow it up. And I understand if the Sixers did. Here's what's happened again, and I can't make this point enough, but here's where we're at right now with the 76ers. We're at a point where I think you are really at a crossroads as an organization. And because they continue to have good to great regular seasons, whether that's being a 3 seed, whether that's being a 1 seed, whether that's winning 55 wins in a season, 54 wins in a season, whatever it might be, they're having these great regular seasons. How am I supposed to enjoy that? You literally had the best player in the league, the MVP, second round exit. You literally went and got another scoring champion. You went and got a guy that this year led the league in assists. Second round exit. You went up and you actually got some bench help. Last year, huge problem. Bench help. Had no bench help. Needed bench help. Got to have bench help. You went and got DeAnthony Melton. Doc Rivers started him. For I don't know how many games, 30 games to see, whatever it was. That's not a good call. That's terrible. And then when he actually went back to the bench role, he was great. He was good in that role, but still not helpful enough. Had some clutch shots and some big games. Game 1 of the second round series was great, and then all that. And this is really, since then, not much. Not a lot going on there. Do you honestly look at this Sixers team and whoever their next head coach is going to be, and do you look at James Harden and Joel Embiid and say those guys are the guys you're going to build a championship around? I can't honestly say that anymore. I had a lot of hope. Watching Game 6, opportunity to close it out at home, going into that fourth quarter, opportunity to close it out, and your team chokes in the final 6 minutes. I know Jason Tatum got hot, but where was the response? Game 7? I mean, come on. That's the most embarrassing loss I can remember, as I told you guys on Monday. It's that terrible. So do you actually have confidence in the Sixers team turning it around? Is this the point? Is this the fork in the road and they take the right path? Because I don't have confidence in Daryl Morey building this team. Just like I don't have confidence in Joel Embiid and James Harden actually winning a championship together. And that's oh my God, is that a painful admission to make? But again, it makes the regular season seem meaningless. Because the only thing that matters, as I said, after the second half of the season, or excuse me, after the All-Star break, it just this is all just entertainment up until the second round of the playoffs, because that's when push really comes to shove, and that's when things really start to matter. So you got to sit through another 82 games. Like, here's what I hope: whoever comes in, if it's going to be Mike D'Antoni, if it's going to be Mike Budenholzer, if it's going to be Nick Nurse, if it's going to be Sam Cassell, whoever it might be, JJ Redick's name getting mentioned. No, thank you. If that's the way it's going to be, then Joel Embiid, play 50 games next year. James Harden, play 50 games next year. Like, don't even play 60. Just play 50. Be rested. Be ready for the playoffs. Be healthy. That's all I ask. But I don't have confidence that's going to happen. Because, of course, the NBA gets involved and all that. And You only have so much load management and all that stuff. But that seems to be what you're going to have for James Harden and Joel Embiid to even have a chance in the postseason. I'm at a very, very low point as a Sixers fan because I really feel like we are staring into the abyss. And I feel like we are on the verge of everything just not being a factor anymore, of the Sixers going back into that purgatory. And I was texting with a buddy of mine yesterday who said, so basically now we're blowing it up. And I don't think that's happening. Although I think that is, when we look back on it, this could be the Jimmy Butler decision all over again. It doesn't make any sense right now to keep Jimmy Butler and let Ben Simmons go. But turns out that was the right decision in hindsight. This could be another moment where it's not gonna feel good in the moment to move on and blow this thing up, but it might have been the right decision at this point in time. And that's a painful admission. Because I look at Joel Embiid and I think, yes, next year he could give you another MVP caliber regular season, but now at this point, who gives a damn? I mean, you look at the 2001 run with Allen Iverson, and as I said yesterday, you look back on that, and you look at it with Allen Iverson, and you go, oh, he was the MVP that year, and they won game one, and it's looked back positively. In 20 years, when we look back on this season, yeah, Joel Embiid was the MVP. Pfft. Yeah. So it's like we're disgusted by that fact now. It's not a proud consolation prize. It was the MVP. See what Joker was doing in the playoffs? By the way, another triple-double for him, but not too bad. Last night in game one, they beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. But as a Sixers fan right now, looking at this team, I think we're staring into the abyss. And my buddy texted me last night. He's like, we're blowing it up. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think you're blowing it up. But I think we're about to slip into now a conscious purgatory. The whole reason the process started, as we know, is to get out of that purgatory of being a first or second round playoff exit team and acquiring assets, cashing them in, getting talent. And we all know what the deal was, okay? But the biggest thing here is with this Sixers squad is that you did all that to get out of that purgatory. And now with Joel Embiid, with Ben Simmons, with Jimmy Butler, and yeah, with James Harden and all that, we have been in that purgatory still, just unconsciously. Now, why is it unconscious? Well, because we actually had hope that they were going to make it out, that they were going to be a third round, Eastern Conference Finals team or NBA Finals team. We actually had hope for that. If we actually have hope for that, realistic hope for that, and if it's not realistic, then I don't know what it is to be a number one seed. I don't know what it is to have Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris playing very well together with Joel Embiid playing very well. I don't know what it is to look at it with James Harden playing well throughout an entire regular season and look at it with Doc Rivers as a championship-winning coach and go, oh, yeah, this team can make it. But now, like, Joel Embiid's going to be another year older. He's going to be 30 next year, and it's not a good 30 with all the injuries he's had. James Harden's going to be, 34 next year? That's not good. He's not getting any better. I mean, now you could be on the verge of bringing in Mike D'Antoni. So all the jokes about the Houston Rockets, the Philadelphia Rockets, whatever you want to call them, they would come to fruition. But what's Mike D'Antoni done? Has he won? Okay. I almost want the next head coach to be a guy we've never heard of. Like when I saw the list, I was listening to Woj yesterday talk about it, with Budenholzer being on the list, D'Antoni, who I mentioned, Frank Vogel being on the Monty Williams. I like Monty Williams. I like all these guys, but it's like, find me the guy that was like hiding in find me the Spoelstra guy, the guy hiding in the film room. And I know that was Brett Brown, but it was like, find me the guy that I've never heard of. But unfortunately with stars, you have to have some kind of cachet. You have to have some kind of brand of, I've done this before, I know how to win, or you at least have to have the respect of the players. Sam Cassell jumps out because he's the guy that's here. He might have a lot of influence with Doc Rivers already in terms of the influence Doc Rivers has had on him. And let's not forget that, and I make this point when we talk to Austin Krell later in the show, but when you look around the league, Sam Cassell, Dave Yeager, who else was it? Burke. Dan Burke, these guys had opportunities to possibly be head coaches elsewhere, and they chose to come here and coach under Doc Rivers. So I don't know what the next step is for any of these guys on the coaching staff, but Sam Cassell, I'm interested in. He worked wonders with Tyrese Maxey. Seems like he's got a great relationship with a lot of guys on this team. I wouldn't mind if Sam Cassell got the job. Nick Nurse is a guy that a lot of people love because he can really adjust on the fly. He's a really good coach, but he doesn't win a championship if Kawhi Leonard doesn't go to Toronto. Like, So let's call it what it is. Mike D'Antoni, I just don't get. I know there's a fascination, there's a curiosity, there's a relationship there. But if you're Joel Embiid, even if you liked Mike D'Antoni as possibly getting the head coaching job before Doc Rivers 3 years ago, wouldn't you feel like, and keep in mind, that's before James Harden was here. If you want Mike D'Antoni as your coach, you look at it and go, okay, Daryl Morey, then James Harden, PJ Tucker, okay, what else we got here? And Mike D'Antoni is the head coach. Am I the guy anymore? Am I the franchise guy? Am I the guy calling the shots? Do I have any leeway, cachet at all? That seems like you were the best guy at your job, and then, the new manager that you like gets fired. He's out. And then they start crowding the office with people from another office, and all of a sudden it's like you work for another company altogether. It's like, I'm sorry, I thought I was a top salesman in my field. Anyway, it just seems like they're stacking the deck with people that aren't Sixer guys. I just feel like this franchise is lost right now. Absolutely lost. And I feel like we're staring into the abyss of another rebuild in the not too distant future. Instead of me looking forward to a championship with Joel Embiid, instead of me looking forward to another parade, or at least the tangible, realistic hope of it happening, I feel like what we're doing now is staring in the abyss and just waiting for the process to run its course. And people can say it's dead. People could say it's failed. I think to this point it absolutely has failed, and I think it will continue to fail. And that's a painful reality. Thanks for joining the show today. Phillies lost last night, too. I laughed because if I don't, I'd be crying. I did find it interesting. I did find it very interesting, as a matter of fact, that the national media had Doc's back on this. Most notably, Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins yesterday on ESPN. J.J. Redick, who we all know played for Doc Rivers for a number of years, had some interesting things to say, but just pretty much that he wasn't surprised that Doc Rivers got canned. When they asked him about it yesterday on First Take, Stephen A. Smith had this to say about whether or not it was the right call to move on from Doc Rivers.
No, I don't think it was the right decision, because I don't think that James Harden is the right player for that franchise, to be quite honest with you. I think that he's lost a step. He's not what he used to be. He led the league in assists. He's still an all-star caliber player. Not to throw any shade on him in that regard, but in big games, he comes up very, very small on far too many occasions. And ultimately, I think that if Doc Rivers had more I don't want to use, I don't know what word to use in this particular situation, but somebody that was ready to step up in big moments, I don't think he would have found himself in this situation. That certainly didn't happen, and that's why he's gone.
You never really hear players get criticized like that when a coach is fired, but that's his point blank. Is again, Stephen A. Smith's been even for Stephen A. Smith, the piping hot takes have been coming out of his mouth. When Ben Simmons, now Doc Rivers and James Harden, holy pots and pans, Stephen. But I agree wholeheartedly with everything he had to say. Like I don't think I can't remember a time where I ever looked at a coach getting fired and going, okay, keep going. What's next? And now you can't just go out there and all of a sudden start making moves. Dame Lillard's not going to be a Sixer tomorrow. I get that. But the fact that it happened so quickly, I mean, I think it means two things. It means, one, it's a definite decision. It wasn't like they had to debate this for a long period of time. It was basically the mandate was set. Second round, exit again, bye. Pretty simple. How's your relationship? James Harden, how's your relationship with Doc Rivers? That's okay. I love you. Thanks. That's kind of the way it plays out there. So to listen to this and hear all these people talking about Doc Rivers in this regard, yes, I don't think he was going to win here, but I don't think the players that are here right now are going to win either. So what's the next move? I eagerly await the next move of the Philadelphia 76ers. It'll probably be the next head coach, and then from there, after the season, go into the offseason, and please make some moves that turns this whole thing around. I don't know what it is. Dame Lillard comes to mind. But I am waiting for the moment where Daryl Morey wows us as a general manager. I thought last year made good acquisitions. DeAnthony Bell, I thought was a great acquisition. PJ Tucker. I never seen anybody talk to Joel Embiid like that in the playoffs. I think you're gonna need that guy around. And for the money, I think you're gonna have him around. But Tobias Harris with an expiring contract will be easier to move. So as the offseason goes on, I don't know. I just ask for a little bit more hope. Finally, I mentioned Kendrick Perkins as well. Kendrick Perkins talked yesterday about Joel Embiid and the 76ers and James Harden. When he was asked a question on NBA Today by the angel from heaven that was sent to us to talk basketball, Malika Andrews, as I like to refer to her, she asked Kendrick Perkins yesterday, was this the right move, firing Doc Rivers?
No, it wasn't. I mean, we expected Doc Rivers to get fired because of the love affair and the relationship between Daryl Morey and James Harden. And here's the fact of the matter. When it comes down to Game 6 and Game 7, Joel Embiid and James Harden folded like a fresh set of clean sheets. It's no other way around it, okay? And then when you look at it, a Rolex watch, Embiid, a Rolex watch is what James Harden bought you. That was easy enough to persuade you to say, you know what, let me go to war for Doc Rivers, a guy that has put me in position to be the league leading scorer in back-to-back years, to win my first MVP. And then, you know what else is disturbing? I just looked at that list, and I saw Mike D'Antoni's name up there. Another tie relationship between Daryl Morey and James Harden. What in the hell have D'Antoni, Daryl Morey, and James Harden accomplished?
You know, I regret it. I cut it before he said, not a damn thing. Oh, man. It's just the pain, folks. The pain. I'm in a state of pain with the 76ers organization. And as I said yesterday, I'm an optimistic guy. Like, I think you guys know my personality. I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. I really am. And my personal life, the only thing that really pisses me off is sports. It really, I mean, there's real issues in the world. Don't get me wrong, and they piss me off too. But I mean, typically speaking, I'm optimistic. It'll work out. We got this. But with sports, it's so doom, and it's, you know what it is? It's feast or famine for me. It's either puppy dogs and ice cream or it's fire and brimstone. And I am way more in the fire and brimstone alley with the Sixers team than I can remember in recent memory. And that really sucks. But I have a feeling that this team is going to be together for at least one more year with James Harden and Joel Embiid. And I would assume Mike D'Antoni is the leader in the clubhouse here. A couple away from like the obvious things of not winning a championship, one of the things that sticks out in my mind with Mike D'Antoni is the late Kobe Bryant, when D'Antoni was hired to be the head coach of the Lakers. They had asked Kobe Bryant about bringing in Mike D'Antoni. He was like, "Oh, the guy is just an offensive genius." And then the Lakers did nothing. And with Kobe Bryant, and I know he was injured and all that stuff, but like, the goal of this organization right now should not be make James Harden more comfortable. The goal of this organization should be moving on from James Harden and finding somebody else that could be the clutch player next to Joel Embiid, because I don't think Joel Embiid is going to get traded. All I have said about it is if that they're getting calls on it, you got to take the calls. If you're like, for the first time, if they did move on from him, I'd go, yeah, I get it. I can see why. But the goal of this franchise should be to continue to build around Joel Embiid and find him somebody that will be that clutch player. If he can't be the clutch player, you got to have a clutch player. And James Harden, not a clutch player. That's the repeating fact. And, led the league in assists, MVP. Those are really nice regular season attributes. But in the regular season, you're not playing the Boston Celtics 7 times in a row. You're not playing the Bucks 7 times in a row. You're not playing the Heat 7 times in a row if you're lucky. So the regular season, you know what I have to say about the regular season from now on? It's adorable. It's entertaining. Get me to the playoffs. That's what it is in most cities anyway for the NBA, if you're lucky enough to make the playoffs. Well, lucky enough. It's not like it's that hard anymore. But anyway, the goal of this team should not be James Harden How can we make them more comfortable? The goal of this team is to acquire winning players. Whoever comes in as the head coach, it's about winning players. And right now, I don't think you have the winning players on this franchise, on this roster. That should be the number one goal. And I don't think James Harden is a winning player. And I'm not the only one saying it, obviously. Without further ado, let's jump on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line, talk to our friend Austin Krell, get his. Oh, but real quick, Phillies did lose last night, heartbreaking fashion. Well, I shouldn't say heartbreaking, annoying fashion. We'll get to it later. Let's get to the interview. Austin Krell joins us from the PatedLines.com. Here he is, Austin Krell. Now, the Rothman Orthopedics guest line, our good friend from USA Today, as well as the PatedLines.com Sixers beat reporter Austin Krell. Austin, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you doing today?
I feel like my team's lighting itself on fire is how I'm doing. I get firing Doc Rivers, but what I don't like is the idea, at least right now at this given moment, players, you're fine. Everything's fine. You guys are great, but we're just going to fire the head coach because, that's what else are we going to do at this point? First off, your initial reaction to Doc Rivers, and then what do you think this does say to the rest of the team at this given moment?
So my initial reaction was I wasn't surprised by it. It's, the first step. It's always the easiest step is to fire the coach when you underachieve. I think a lot of people are like, this is a disaster. They lost in the second round again. They also weren't really favored at all in that series. There was never a game really where they were favored. They were only favored to win game 4, I think, when the line closed by half a point, and everything else they were underdogs in.
All right.
So, you could argue that given what Vegas thought about them, that they, gave the Celtics all they could handle. But having said that, you come out in game 6 and you fight all the way back, which I thought was a testament to the traits and the spirit and the character that they showed all season long. And you hold a 2-point lead with 6 minutes left to go, and you don't score another basket until 30 seconds left in the game in garbage time. Then game 7 comes around. You get outscored in the third quarter, 33-10. That's 2 quarters in back-to-back games where you just simply had no idea how to attack a Boston defensive adjustment when they went with a double big lineup. Now, maybe we could say that lineup is, the sneaky weapon that the Boston Celtics are now going to ravage the rest of the NBA and win the title with. Maybe we can say that. But the bottom line is Doc Rivers said ahead of game 6 that they knew that was coming and they worked on it. And then in game 7, they had 2 days to work on it. And they were competitive in the first half. As soon as the third quarter went, again. So they had nothing. Now I will say this: we can't pin this all on Doc, because that would also excuse the likes of Joel Embiid and James Harden, which simply cannot be done. I've said this in the meantime. I've said this since then. I will continue to say it all off season. This needs to be an inflection point for Joel. James, at this point in his career, most of the book is probably already written on him, even though he did have huge moments in these playoffs to give them a chance in the series. He still was terrible in game 6 and in game 7. For Joel, this is really the first true strike against his legacy. People will say he's always underperformed in the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. There were other things that you could have said that were reasons as to why those teams didn't advance past second round, whether it be Ben Simmons, whether it be, roster construction, whether it be injuries, what have you. This was the first time where Joel simply was inexplicably terrible in the games that, and coming down the stretch of games.
Sure.
So this is the first strike against him where you can legitimately say, Joel, you didn't even show up. You are now a guy whose reputation is going to be painted as a guy who can dominate the regular season and is an underperformer to the highest degree in the playoffs. And when the moment is the brightest, you don't respond. So he'll still have time, of course. He's only 29 to change that narrative about himself, but this was a very nasty gash in his legacy for the way that he came out in this series. And firing Doc, in some senses, pardons that. That can't be them letting themselves off the hook, as whether James is part of the future still, whether whatever Joel is. That can't be them saying, well, it'll all be different next time now that Doc is gone. No, this was just as much more about the players than it was about the coach. And if they don't internalize that and grow from that and have this inflection point that they need to have, you're going to be in the same spot going forward.
So on that note, here's where I'm at mentally. And you can tell me if I'm just completely crazy, Austin, or if I'm like, oh, no, I can see why you'd feel that way. I'm in no way pushing Joel Embiid out the door. I'm not calling every team in the NBA saying, what will you give me? But at this point in time with James Harden, and I think with Doc Rivers being gone, I think that actually means James Harden's back, but we'll get to that. But James Harden, Joel Embiid, everyone on this squad, I'm listening. If someone gives me a call, do you want to offer me 4 first-round picks, a Rudy Gobert package, whatever it might be, maybe a little bit more because it is the reigning MVP? You have my attention. It's no longer in the realm of you can't trade it. Everyone's protected. Everyone's got to run it back. That's so far out of where I'm thinking right now. I think everything's on the table in this offseason. It was Doc Rivers. He was already on the chopping block. He's gone. Whether it's James Harden, Joel Embiid, I think everything is on the table because this Sixers team, I don't care who comes in here as the next head coach, whoever it might be. If it's the same roster, I'm going to have my doubts about this squad. Am I crazy, Austin?
Yeah, a little bit. So here's where I would stand.
Okay, okay, stop me. Please stop me. Go ahead.
Number one, the guy just won the MVP. He's the vast majority of people who matter in terms of how you qualify, that they got votes and other people didn't get votes. Majority of them said that Joel was the best player in the league this season, most impactful player in the league. I don't think there's a very big historical precedent of you then saying, okay, he's for sale. Who wants him?
Right. Yeah.
After the season ends. This is a blemish in the career of Joel Embiid. I don't think this is the defining moment in the career of Joel Embiid. He still has a lot of time to make up for that. I think we can look at guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who wins MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in 2020, and then is embarrassed in the second round by the Miami Heat in the bubble a couple of years ago. They then turn around and they win the championship the next year. It's an inflection point in his career. I think you need to have lows sometimes to be humbled a little bit and to understand where you need to grow as a player in order to achieve the new heights sometimes. And I think that is one of the cases for Joel. I think you just can't. I don't know how you go about explaining that to your fan base as much as they are mad right now. I don't know how you say hey, come back to us next year when we don't have Joel because we traded him, and come buy tickets and stuff like that, and come see Tyrese Maxey and a couple draft picks that we don't have until 2027, whatever. So I don't see that that's a viable path unless Joel says I want out of here, which I don't think he's inclined to do at the moment. I think that what needs to happen is Joel needs to do some soul searching this summer and this offseason. And I think the Sixers as an organization need to question everything that they once thought they knew about themselves. I mean, from the ground up, are we, can Joel be the center of a team? Well, no pun intended, not literally the center.
I understand. Yeah.
Can he be the focal point of an offense and that team can win a championship?
The core. Can he be the core? Yeah.
Yes. Can it be about feeding Joel first and then everybody gets the gets whatever is left? He needs to challenge himself in ways and say, am I putting too much of my power and my focus and my affirmation in the regular season? Am I trying too hard to win approval in the regular season? And am I missing the grander picture that legacies and legends are created in the playoffs? I think everything from the way that they run their offense, from the way that they go about prioritizing everyone else within the offense needs to be questioned and pondered, because Joel as the focal point in the offense he got the ball and he couldn't do anything against Boston. And, do I think there were some, things with that knee where it was, where they kind of just let it quietly go away because no one asked about it? perhaps he didn't have much lift against Al Horford on his shot. He couldn't burst to his strong side and dunk on people the way that he had previously. I think there's probably a little something there, if not more. But the bottom line is that they now have to question everything that they thought they knew about Joel, about themselves, and he has to do some maturing and looking in the mirror, because this was the biggest regression back to his pre-Doc Rivers immaturities that we've seen in 3 years.
See, it's interesting you say that, because I feel like when we've watched the postseason before, whether it was him and Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons, obviously, or it was him and Ben Simmons before the Harden trade, and it was the Hawks game, as we all know, and now it's this series as well. It's the Heat last year. We're always talking about injuries with Joel Embiid, and we're always talking about coming up small in the playoffs. Like, it just always seems like that's the repeating theme. And I know you say he's only 29, but like it feels like he's an old 29 and he's going to be a really old 30 next year. And I love the guy, and I've enjoyed the hell out of his career, but it just feels like this is a moment where, again, I'm not pushing him out the door. And I'm not saying, hey, bag of peanuts for Joel Embiid, but I'm just saying I think it's a time where the Sixers would at least have to pick up the phone and listen to the offer. I'm not saying they do it or pull the trigger, but that's just the headspace I'm still in. Although you did a great job of, perking me up a little bit that he still has to do the soul searching, hopefully, and he comes back a better player next year. Now, a guy that could potentially maybe get the better version of Joel Embiid is there's this long list of coaches put out there by Adrian Wojnarowski, and I don't know what you've heard, Austin Krell, about who the next coach of the Sixers could be if there's a front runner. I know people are talking about Mike D'Antoni, people are talking about Mike Budenholzer, all of these guys that could possibly take over for Doc Rivers. Is there a guy, or are there multiple people that you think would come in here and be like really solid at taking over and hopefully making this team take that next step?
Can we power rank it by the way that callers on the radio would pronounce their last names? Can we power rank it that way?
Definitely.
We would have Mike D'Antonio first. We would have I don't even know where they would go with Mike Budenholzer, right? It would just be
Hauser. They'd probably go Hauser.
Yeah. It would be a calamity of misfires of spellings and letters together. The way that from what I've heard poking around, it sounds like it's the core of coaches that Woj suggested. I think, D'Antoni would be up there. I think Cassell would be up there as a guy who everyone on that team flocks to. And I think Nick Nurse would be up there because he's schematically a very creative guy. I think the whole Toronto thing this season, it was more like everyone was tired of each other there. It had run its course, and I don't think that he would necessarily just I don't think he was a bad coach per se. I think it was just like it had been too long, and it was time for a change. And so maybe this is a fresh start for him. I don't know about his relationship with Joel. I know Joel's taken some passive, shots at him in press conferences before about about the crying for fouls and whatnot.
Sure.
So I do think this. I would say that. Whoever the next head coach is someone who should be younger and has energy to be creative, because I think what you see with coaches, especially in my experiences with Doc, and I like Doc as a guy, I think people blamed him for everything. I don't think he was at fault for everything, but I do think when you have, you're named a top 15 coach of all time, when you have all this experience and you've seen success, you tend to get a little bit ego-y and, I don't know what the word is, but, you tend to not want to listen to other people about your ways. And,
arrogant?
Arrogant is one of the words, I think it's just that his ego, you want a coach who hasn't proven anything.
In Italian, we'd call it testadore.
That
hard-headed. Yeah,
that's right. Hard-headed is the stubborn. Stubborn is the word I was looking for.
Stubborn is there you go. Yeah, let's speak English. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, stubborn. When you've seen what Doc has seen, I can understand how you'd be stubborn, but that can also be your fatal flaw. So I think having somebody who is younger would be good. Having said that, if their goal is to retain the core of Joel and James and make everything copacetic, I would think that, if I were an odds maker, I would say the betting favorite would, by logic, be D'Antoni. But now I don't, we'll see what happens. But again, none of this really matters until the players take it upon themselves to own up to what happened. Mm-hmm. And, we can say Doc was this and that, and they weren't good enough, and it was the same second round exit as always. I don't think the Sixers view it as like second round exit or getting to the conference finals is our goal here. I think the goal is to be the best team in the league and be the last one standing when all is said and done.
Sure.
What if when all is said and done, the Celtics end up sweeping the Heat and sweeping whoever they play in the finals? You could theoretically come out of this postseason a month from now when things have calmed down and say, damn, the Sixers gave the Celtics the best run of anybody. Maybe they were closer than the second round exit implies that they were. And I do think there is something to that to be considered here, instead of just saying it's all over, it's hogwash, got to start all over again. But I do think that in terms of coaching candidates, Ime Udoka, is somebody who Houston hired. Right, it's a PR disaster in terms of his off the court stuff, but that's the type of mind that you are looking for as somebody who's a very good X's and O's coach. Very, will tell you how it is exactly to your face. So I think Nick Nurse is a very plausible candidate. I think his X's and O's are excellent. And I think if we're looking to make players happy, then Mike D'Antoni would be in the mix. I'm curious to see what kind of standing Sam Cassell has in this whole thing, because he does have the ears of a lot of players there. It's a question, I think it's a question of, does he want to be a head coach? He looks, I'm not saying he doesn't, because I don't know the guy very well, but he looks very happy to be an assistant coach and loves to, be the uncle kind of character in this whole thing. Yeah. Instead of being the sort of the dictator per se.
Well, I do remember when he was hired and when Doc Rivers got here as well. I mean, all these guys like Dave Yeager and obviously Sam Cassell, all these guys had opportunities to coach elsewhere, like be head coaches, at least interview and be a finalist. And they said, now we're going to coach under Doc. And I always thought that was an interesting thing with Sam Cassell. Do you worry about too much carryover from Doc Rivers' ways into Sam Cassell's ways?
Yeah, I think it's always a thing that you can be concerned about. I think like everything that you hear from current and former players about Doc is why he is no longer the head coach. It's like that guy doesn't adjust to anything. Right. It's like Rasheed Wallace, the video that came out a couple of days ago. It was like, yeah, we would just go out of the huddle and then call up our own stuff because we were like, we're not doing any of that. Like, that's not exactly what you want to. Like, if that's floating around the minutes after you just get eliminated by 30 points in Game 7, it's not a great look.
No, Blake Griffin earlier in the year when they hit the 7 or 8 threes, whatever it was against the Sixers, he was like, oh yeah, they didn't adjust. It's not really something that's not that's a typical thing. Like whatever he said, but it was a hit at Doc Rivers.
Yeah. So I think what you're looking for here is like, you know what, like James and, James is here, James, of course, but Joel, those guys should all matter in terms of who we choose. We want our players to like our coach, obviously, but we are looking for somebody who can adjust on the fly and is not afraid to get creative and get inventive during the regular season and use that as a period of experimentation, which is not something that Doc did very often. When they lost the Hawks series, right? Like he's running out Dwight Howard as a backup center when those minutes weren't going well. He's playing Ben Simmons and Dwight Howard together. He ran those lineups to death and they were clearly not producing positive numbers. He stuck with them. That was the MO when he had the high profile collapse in LA with the Clippers when they lost in the bubble. He kept playing Montrezl Harrell, who got played off the court by Jokic and the Nuggets. So, these are all, it's very similar characteristics. And I think, what you said at the beginning about how the message that this sends to Joel and James of like, you're off the hook. The Sixers hiring Doc within days of him being fired in LA sent a similar message. It was like, you don't need to do any introspection or thinking about why you got fired from LA. Just come to us. We'll pay you, 5 years, $40 million, whatever it was. He didn't have to, he wasn't forced to reflect on himself at all. And I think, there is some messaging that needs to go on there to the players, because until they figure this out, it's likely going to be a similar outcome unless there's a dramatic shift in the East.
Two last ones for you here. When it comes to Joel Embiid and Mike D'Antoni, do you think Joel Embiid wants to play for Mike D'Antoni? Because that seems like it would be a heavily favor to James Harden running things as opposed to Joel Embiid being the star.
I know that when they were looking for the Brett Brown replacement. Ben Simmons wanted Ty Lue, and Joel wanted Mike D'Antoni, and the meet me halfway was Doc Rivers when he became available. So, I think Joel would have interest in playing for Mike D'Antoni, based on the things that I've heard in the past. I don't know if that's changed now, but I do think that, you tend to want to make decisions that your MVP endorses.
Gotcha. Understood. And then finally, is Tobias Harris back with the Sixers next year?
I don't see it. I tend to think that he will be part of the grand changes of this roster. I think they need more willing 3-point shooters, guys that will make threes too would be helpful. Considering they shot, they shot like I think 7. I forget what the team shot in total, but it was.
I know in the last 2 games it was 23% and 21% from beyond the arc.
Right. So not great, and that isn't all Tobias, but I mean he came in the year. I remember him saying the goal was like 6 to 8 threes per game. By the end of the playoffs, it was like taking 3 per game. So that's not good enough, obviously. So my guess would be that that's part of their grand, attempt to foster new trust from the fan base. Is like, hey, we've shipped out this forward, we've remade the roster and make it more balanced in some ways. But the reality is this: they rightfully will not warrant any trust from their fans as long as this is still the core of the team until they actually get over the hump. And the hump for fans who want to think about it as just second round, that's not the hump. The point is not to get past the second round. The point is to get to the finals and win a championship. Because we can sit here, as I said, a month from now and think the Sixers almost beat the team that won the championship. They were 5 minutes away, too many threes away from sending them home. It shouldn't be about getting to the over the hump of second round. There are much bigger goals at stake here, and I think for Joel, he has to reprioritize himself towards the playoffs instead of focusing on quietly focusing on the MVP, because I think that was he wouldn't say it publicly, but if I had to venture a guess, I think a lot of his thinking throughout the year was like, I have to quietly do this, but I want the MVP. And I think once he got it, his focus was not 100% on the series, if I had to guess.
Understood. Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Austin Krell. Make sure you read everything this man puts out there, all the piping hot content. You guys can check him out, of course, at thepaintedlines.com. Also an NBA contributor to USA Today Sports Media Group. Austin, great catching up with you as always. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
The great Austin Krell joining us on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. Austin Krell, ladies and gentlemen. Always great catching up with Austin. Make sure you check out all the stuff, paintedlines.com, as well as USA Today contributor. How about that? One read today. I got one read today. Here's the read I'm going to do today, okay? Here's all I'm going to do. It's just to help the good people, because I know you guys need it. I know some people, this is the time stamp of their day, and it's late. Do it. It's 7:02 in the morning as we do this live for the people on the podcast. Half Hindu, Kush. And 21%. There you go. Let's get to the chat check. See how you guys are doing this fine morning. Get us started over on the Farzy Show page. April, good morning. April, I didn't see it till just now. Bye, Felicia. Sean Kilrain. I think I said that with the right inflection. Sean Kilrain, good morning. Jokic is the Joker, while Embiid is a joke in his playoff performances. Well done, Sean. Well done. Sean Gillespie, good morning to you as well. Sean Kilrain, with those two players equal loser mentality, they will always come up short. Do you agree? Yes, I agree, unfortunately. That's why I don't like those two players. I agree. It's astonishing to me that if you're Daryl Morey, you're looking at this situation and you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, I just have to help James Harden. What? What makes you think James Harden is the guy that you absolutely have to have and build around? Money, not going to be worth it. If James Harden gets re-signed, I feel like this franchise is going to be crippled financially. It's going to be the exact opposite of what the Colangelos inherited, Elton Brand inherited, Brett Brown for 20 seconds inherited. It's going to be the exact. It's going to be, instead of an embarrassment of riches, it's going to be, we got nothing. That's what it's going to be like. Still can't believe the entire team just gave up for 2 games. No fighting spirit at all. Sean, I'm with you. The whole Sixers organization has a loser mentality, needs to change from the top down. I concur. April, once they lost game 6, like they did, I knew game 7 was not going to be a win. So frustrating, just total lack of effort. Yeah, and drive and everything. It's terrible, April. Sean goes, everyone that played for Rivers seems to not support him, correctly so. I go back. You know what? I should try to, let me just, give me 30 seconds here, because I really do want to find this. And I wasn't sure if whether or not it was going to be relevant, but after I referenced it with Austin Krell there, I'm just going to see if I can, if I can't find it in like 30 seconds, I'm not going to use it. I think this is it. All right. I'll get to it in 1 second here. It's loading. But it's the Blake Griffin comment about the Sixers not adjusting. And it's a direct shot at Doc Rivers. In case you hadn't seen it, I'll play it for you in a second. Oh, wow. That was quick. All right. I believe this is Blake Griffin. If you remember the game, the Sixers were playing in Boston. I don't think anyone was playing for Boston, but Blake Griffin just somehow magically hit like 7 threes in the game. Here's Blake Griffin on adjustments that weren't made.
What were you feeling out there? What were you seeing out there to get you going from 3?
Just space. I mean, honestly, when a team leaves you open like that, you just got to try to make them pay. And, you know, shooting open shots all night. So it was nice to see some go through.
James Harden was just talking about how you got, like, they just kind of left you open, and like they were just lazy on the defensive end. Do you feel like maybe a little disrespect to just kind of leave you open like that? You know, as a guy who can shoot 3-pointers like that?
I don't really take it as disrespect. It hurt them. That was their game plan. Obviously, you know, Doc makes that game plan. They didn't adjust, which has been sort of a thing. No disrespect, though.
Oh, that guy's terrible at his job. No disrespect though. Like, with all due respect, you're terrible at your job. But with all due respect, God, you suck. But with all due respect, you're a moron. That's what's happening right there. Though that quote did jump to mind yesterday as well. Did I see 2 separate requests for a Gabe Kapler impression? Really? It's coming. I'll do it when I talk about the Phillies in a second. But thank you, Mihai. Thank you for putting the quarter in the machine. Sean Gillespie, Embiid, also be a damn leader. Take responsibility. I agree. Sean Kilrain, Sean Gillespie, 100%. Philly Insider Podcast. Great shot. Thank you, Philly Insider Podcast. Appreciate that. Jump over to the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Dan Schwartz, look at you channel hopping SOB. Dan Schwartz over here. They suck. Those are 2 separate comments. We put them together. It makes one nice comment. Dan Schwartz. I know it has been a few days, but I've come to this realization that they suck, and I actually may just hate them. Don't sign Harden. Thank you. Dan Schwartz. They won't blow it up, not because they want to win, but because they need to stay relevant. They're trying to get in a new stadium. Staying relevant is the most important thing this organization can do. The coach doesn't matter. You cannot devise a strategy for 0 effort. I concur. I've gone full Eskin, except I do have bet. Here's the thing. I'll for all-time process haters. Here's where I'll disagree. First off, statement of fact. There's no other way to look at this. There's no other side to this argument. The process has been a failure. The only way the process is not a failure is if this year, magically, mystically, this year is the turning point. It's the only way. And they go on and win like 3 championships. So, yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say the process is a failure and forever will be a failure. The bigger argument is why it was a failure. Because here's the thing that sucks. And I was on board with Hinkie, and I've said this many times. I was on board with Hinkie. I said, let's break it down to build it back up. The only difference between me and a Hinkieite is the Hinkieite said unlimited amount of time. And I was like, let's give it 3 years. Let's see how he does in 3 years. And then with all the riches, all the assets, Colangelo's hands. I'm not going to go through how it went again with the complete lineage and how the picks went and who they went to and all that stuff. But with that many people deciding what happens with the investment, it's going to fail. And it did. And that's where we're at right now. So that's the difference for me. I actually supported Sam Hinkie. And I was like, yeah, let's break this the hell down and hopefully build it up to something good. Unfortunately, you just build it up to something that it was before, which was a second-round playoff exit. Anyway, Joel will always be the franchise player for the Philadelphia Rockets. I mean, Sixers. He's totally the guy. I hope so. Eagles fan with a PH. What's going on? Doc lost 10 straight Game 7s. LOL. Build around Embiid and Maxey. Let Hardhead walk. Attestadora. Let's see. King Pooty TV. What's up? I'm not a Doc Rivers guy at all, but this was actually a good coaching job by him. I agree, but another loss in the second round, he had to go. I agree. This was the best year Doc Rivers had as a Sixer head coach. No question about it. It ain't all his fault, but since when has that mattered in sports? Is Doc Rivers going to make shots? No, but that doesn't matter. Is Doc Rivers going to shoot 23% from beyond the arc in Game 6? Is Doc Rivers going to shoot 21% from beyond the arc in Game 7? No, but that doesn't matter. King Pooty TV. D'Antoni is not an option, and if Morey looks in that direction, fire Morey ASAP. Well, here's the thing. And I agree with you because, again, the goal of this offseason shouldn't be, we got to make James Harden more comfortable. No. The goal of this offseason should be getting better players and not re-signing James Harden. Dan Schwartz agrees with King Pooty TV. Dan Schwartz says, not sure if I've said this, but they suck. How did I miss this new page? Dan Schwartz. I don't know, man. We've been up on Jacob now for, what, PJ? What have we been on Jacob for now? Like a month? Men's and men's? About 2. Yeah, about that. I'm not good at dates. Anyway, Dan Schwartz didn't know I was the wrong page. This was what popped up. No worries, brother. No worries at all. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful, as per usual. Oh, then Dan Schwartz is now on the other page. My mind is blown. Moving right along, let's get to the Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, skymotorcars.com. As I did mention, the Lakers fell to the Denver Nuggets last night in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Joker, an incredible stat line. That's all you need to know. Anyway, Phillies, though, yesterday took a 4-3 loss and a series loss to the San Francisco Giants. They're back at it at 4:35 today, or 4:25 today, I believe is their start time. I'll get that for you in a second. But last night's game sucked. Phillies, depending on who you believe, Phillies were 0 for 28 with runners in scoring position going into last night. Bryce Stott had an RBI single last night in the when did he actually get that single? Did I not highlight it like an idiot? No, there it is. 4th inning. Phillies were down 2 to nothing. He gets the RBI single. It's 2-1. Then the Giants pitcher Alex Cobb balked in a run. Trey Turner was on third base. He balked in the run. 2-2 ball game. Phillies then gave the lead right back in the bottom of the 4th inning. 3-2, then 4-2 in the bottom of that 4th inning. Like it's so frustrating to watch Trey Turner right now. And here's the thing: the guy's consistently getting hits, whether it's an 11-game hitting streak or a single here, a double there, whatever it is. But like, I've never seen a guy continuously get hits and watch his batting average drop the way it has with Trey Turner. And you talk about feast or famine with guys like Kyle Schwarber. It's even crazier with Trey Turner, and his batting average is not nearly as terrible. With Trey Turner, he goes from looking like a guy that can consistently hit gaps, consistently get on base, to a guy that looks absolutely lost at the plate. And he had an at-bat in the 6th inning where he was just taking wild swings again. He was being overly aggressive. He was pressing. He was 1,000% in quicksand, and he ended up striking out. But I just don't know what you do for Trey Turner other than give him some time off. Tell him to step away, sit out, move. I don't know if you move Bryce and Stott to short again for a little bit, and you have Eddie Sosa at second, or you have Josh Harrison at second, whatever it might be. But Trey Turner needs a break. And I think Rob Thomson needs to have a feel of that and almost save the player from himself. Like, just take a step back for a second, relax, and then hopefully you come back and look like that all-star we all know you can be. But the Phillies did take the 4-3 loss. Kyle Schwarber did hit a home run last night, which is nice. 3:45 start time today for the Phillies. For Schwarber, last night his home run in the top of the ninth inning that made it a one-run ball game was his 10th of the season. So nice to see that for Kyle Schwarber. As for today, Phillies will have Taijuan Walker on the hill going for at least avoiding the sweep. He'll go against Sean Maena of the Giants before they head back to Philly. Tomorrow's an off day. Maybe give Trey Turner a day off today. 2 days off. Works better. Maybe later. I don't know. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. That's the Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Thanks, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, perfect price. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Jim Hyde and Bruce Program did a wonderful job as per usual. We'll break it all down. Whatever happens next for the 76ers, we'll break it all down tomorrow as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow. Bye.